Hey everybody, 8-Bit Josh here, and welcome back to another episode of Aurora Park. So like in the last episode I mentioned, this episode we are working on the monorail station here, and like I said in the last video, this took a long time for me to build, and I didn't want to split up the build between, a couple episodes. I didn't want to start it in the last episode and finish it in this one. I wanted you guys to be able to, kind of see it from start to finish, just in one video. And so that's what this video is. We're working on the, I call it, Corvall. Is it Corvall? What did I call it? Wait, hold on. I have to look it up. Let me look it up. See what I called it. But yeah, Corvall Station. It's actually Corvall Station Alpha, and the reasoning behind kind of giving it the Alpha title is we're gonna use. I plan on using this same building because we're gonna obviously need other monorail stations throughout the park as we start expanding, and I want to use the same building. I'll just copy it, and so the next one will be Corvall Station Beta, and then next will be like Delta, or whatever, something like that. And you'll see here, like I kind of start coloring things this blue color, and I use it throughout this build. Later on we'll see I kind of use these panels around the building itself to give it, kind of just that little extra bit of detail. But my ideas behind it is, so like in the next station, we'll recolor it so it won't be blue. We'll recolor it to like a red color or a green, something like that, just to like differentiate between the different station buildings. And then, it's kind of like if you're a guest in the park, you could kind of tell which station is which by the color that's on the outside. So I thought that would be like a cool little thing to do. You really won't get the effect of that until, much later on when the park is expanded and we have, 2 or 3 other stations around. But I think it'll be, I feel like it's a cool concept, so hopefully it comes across that way. And then yeah, here we're just kind of adding in just like little details of things. I kind of feel like in the spaces in between these buildings, there just needed to be kind of stuff in there just to fill out the space. And I always think, like, when I see sci-fi movies or pictures, like there's always like futuristic junk or sci-fi junk just kind of laying around. So that's kind of my thought with kind of putting that stuff in between the buildings and the stairwells there. And then here, just kind of add more lights around. It's futuristic, like buildings always have all kinds of like lights and stuff around the outside, so just trying to do that here. And plus it looks cool at night. You have when you just look at the buildings and they're kind of outlined, I guess, by the lights and such. So yeah, kind of, like I said at the beginning of the video, the next several videos here are going to be on the Main Street area of the park. And I have some ideas about, kind of giving it that futuristic city. I said in the last episode, I kind of envision it like a, I don't know, a Blade Runner kind of city. Like when you see them walking around, like the streets are real, just compact. The buildings are tall, and there's neon lights and billboards everywhere. And that's kind of what I'm going for, but to, sort of give the illusion of depth, probably like in the next episode, I'm gonna put some just some buildings in the background, like kind of behind the station here and behind the Chief Beef. They'll just be like, I don't know what you would call them, but they're not really functional buildings, other than they're just there to give the illusion of depth. So when you're a guest in the park and you're walking down the street and everything, you kind of look up and out, and you can't really see the rest of the park. You just see, you know, the buildings that are right in front of you, and then behind those there'll be some other buildings that, you know, they look like they're a part of a city, but like I said, they're not functional. They're just to give the illusion of depth, so like you feel like you're in a futuristic city. And I'm gonna try to do more, like instead of just making everything the same sort of gray panels that we've been using so far. I mean, the gray panels are pretty versatile, and you can put, you know, like I do quite often, the little decal pieces on top of them to make them look different, so it's not just like a solid gray color. But you can also color those panels whatever color you want. They don't have to be gray. I just kind of went for that dark gray color. But like I want to use some of the kind of darker brick panels that are in the game, because I also feel like when you see futuristic cities, you know, they're not all metal and gray and, you know, cold looking. Like some buildings are, you see them and they're made out of brick, and they're like old buildings that have been repurposed for, you know, in like a sci-fi setting. So they're, you know, they're brick, but then they have some metal pieces on top of them and kind of stuff like that. You'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about in the next few episodes when I start doing that. We'll probably get into adding some rides, or at least, you know, probably at least one ride. I think I'll probably do I'll probably do a ride in the next episode, and then hopefully the episode after that, you know, depending on how well the build goes, we'll maybe add a second ride. But main streets typically don't have rides on them, or at least not very many I have seen. Maybe they do, but I really just plan on having the main street being these buildings, and then once you get outside the main street area, that's where, you know, you start seeing rides and roller coasters and all that kind of fun stuff. All right, well, thought I would get into the comments from the last video. I had a new comment on the first video that I wanted to read too, because I thought it was a good comment. It was actually by my friend Poofy Gaming. He says, "I really enjoyed watching this. The time lapse and post commentary works pretty well." Well, thank you, Poofy. Doing the post commentary thing is definitely very different for me, especially with my Planet Coaster series before. You know, everything, it was a more traditional Let's Play, where, you know, I recorded as I played and, you know, commentated as I was playing as well. So I'm glad that, you know, this is seems to be working out well. He goes on to say, "As for suggestions, I'd recommend breaking the symmetry a little bit, add an extra tube on one side or some grates on the other side. The building as you do is amazing, but sometimes a little life can be added in the details just by breaking the symmetry a little bit." And I completely agree. You know, I'm gonna try to do more buildings that aren't quite so just square and, you know, square and plain looking. At least I feel like I did that a little bit better with like the Chief Beef and the restroom building, and even the station building here. It's pretty, I think it's pretty you know, unique looking. It's not just like typical looking building. So, you know, hopefully that it's all looking good to you so far. And then especially once we get into like once I start building the area with the domes, I think that'll look really cool, because you'll sort of have these, you know, squarish, rectangle-ish you know, kind of buildings around, and then you have these kind of domes sticking up. I did want to comment real quick. This part here, this is what I was talking about earlier with the panels. So these panels are all blue, and kind of my idea, like when we have this park, or when we have this building in other areas of the park, so instead of these panels being blue, they'll be like a green or red, something like that. So that way when you're the guest, you have a clear visual, idea of what you're like. Oh, well, I know exactly which monorail station this is because the outside of it's blue, or it's green, or it's red. And then I keep interrupting myself in Poofy's comment. And then he goes on to say, I also want to ask, do you plan out beforehand, like making notes or sketches on a notepad? Or do you just start up the game, have an idea ahead, and simply start building? It's actually a little bit of both. I don't do any sketches. Maybe I should do sketches. I feel like maybe that'd make things a little bit easier for me. I do make little notes, just kind of like when I think of ideas, I make little notes. I keep them on my phone, actually. That way, like especially with like names, I just kind of come up with names. I'll just jot them down in my phone or whatever. Or like if I, have a specific area of the park that I want to look a certain way, I'll jot those ideas down. As far as like design concepts, I guess it's pretty much off the cuff, and I've said this many times. Like, it's like I'll have a general idea of what I want the finished product to look like, but getting to that finished point is usually like just trial and error. I'll start building something, and then sometimes you'll see I'll start building stuff, and then I start deleting stuff, and I rebuild. And it's probably not the most efficient way to build. If I thought these things out a little bit further, it'd probably be a little bit more succinct, I guess. But that's just, I don't know, that's just not really how I do. So so like I said, it's pretty much a mix of both. I have general ideas in my head about what I want to do, but getting to those spots is sort of just off the cuff, and I just simply start building. So let's go. I need to check my other comments. So comments from the very last episode, which was only the second episode. Kevitron Milton, he says, cool. Well, you know what? I think you're cool, Kevitron. You got a cool name, buddy. He also left a little smiley emoji. Banana Bob, which that's a fantastic name. I like Banana Bob. He says, I am sad because I bought Planet Coaster, but my computer can't run it. Hopefully I can get a better computer soon. Oh, and your park is looking very nice. It's a very unique park. Well, I'm sorry to hear that your computer can't run Planet Coaster. I get it. Like, Planet Coaster it's a pretty taxing game on your computer. Even if you have the settings turned down, like if you get a large park, it can definitely slow down your knock your frame rate down quite a bit. So hopefully you can upgrade your computer, or get yourself a new one that's capable of running Planet Coaster, because it is a really awesome game, clearly, because I play it quite a bit on my channel. But if you do, I would love to see what kind of stuff you're able to build in Planet Coaster. I'd be excited to see that. Let's see. Stitch Up. He says, excellent second episode. Thank you. Hey, a small suggestion, but in no way a criticism. Why not try recoloring some of the sci-fi pieces and then reusing those pieces to give your ice base a more unique feel? Maybe some dark colors against a neon color? Or not, either way, looking great, keep it up. Well, that's a good point, and I touched on that a little bit earlier. I do plan on making things not just the same old kind of gray color that these buildings have been so far. And, you know, I started a little bit with the monorail station with like the kind of blue panels going around the outside. So yeah, like I said, you know, I'll do more sort of like make some like brick buildings that, you know, look like they're from like an old city, but they've been, you know, sort of repurposed or refurbished, and, you know, look at a little bit, have a little bit mix of like the sci-fi with the kind of old world style, I guess you could say. Could definitely do, why not color some sci-fi and then reuse those sci-fi pieces. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely like, if, you know, I don't want my buildings to be too generic, so like I'm not just like copying and pasting all the buildings everywhere, but I could definitely, you know, if I had some sort of, if I felt a building was unique enough that, you know, if I just wanted to recolor it, I mean, I guess that's, well, really that's what I was talking about earlier with the monorail station. I'm totally going to repurpose it and use it as the monorail station throughout the park, and then just going to recolor the panel pieces so that they're not all blue. And let's see. So last comment, there's only 4 comments, which is okay. You know, this the last video was you know, not that long ago. I think there was a week in between the first and second episodes. This one is not as much time because, like I said, I explained in the last video, this footage was actually recorded at the same time that I recorded all the footage in the second episode. So that's why I was able to get this one out a little bit quicker. But again, my good friend, Let 'em Come In It, he says, love those hanging, dangling power cables. Cool addition to the immersive scenery. Looking forward to seeing some of the sci-fi themed rides. Be great to see a xenomorph / alien style ghost train style thing, or even a Dead Space themed one maybe. Possibilities are great with this one. I agree, they are great, and execution is a big part of this park. That's probably the thing I'm like most sort of, I don't want to say like concerned or worried about, but just hoping that I can get all the ideas in my head to, you know, actually get them into the game. But yeah, like as far as the kind of alien idea, I do have an idea about that. And I mentioned this in the very first episode about my ideas of how I can incorporate the Adventure Pack DLC into this park, because it's very, that DLC is very jungle themed, and, you know, you can make like, you know, kind of think like Indiana Jones, like everything kind of has that feel and vibe to it. And there are pieces where you can sort of make yourself like your like little pyramids, kind of like those pyramids you'd see like in South America. And so kind of my idea is, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to reveal this right away, but I think it's okay. I kind of want to build like an underground pyramid that is almost like it was built by aliens, and then we'll have some sort of, I don't know if it'll be like an entire section of the park, or maybe it'll just be maybe like a underground or like a dark ride roller coaster. But that part I haven't quite worked out in my head. So as far as like kind of getting that alien feel, that's what I plan on doing with that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we're getting close to winding down on this episode. Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is, you know, with my last park, I didn't really focus on lighting too much. And a lot of that is because it was a traditional Let's Play style, and I was building as I was, you know, recording. I never played that park at night, just because it's a lot harder to see when you're building at night. But with this park, I'm definitely trying to focus more on lighting, and especially like on the insides of buildings. So you'll definitely see me give a lot more attention to the lighting. And then the other thing here, I'm adding snow around because, you know, it's sci-fi, but it's in a snowy Arctic setting. So I wanted to add this snow kind of around the park and around the edges of the pathway, because it just gives it that little extra bit of, it's just that a little bit of extra detail that, you know, like if it was snowing, people would come through and they would sweep off the snow off the pathway, but there's always that little bit next to the building that, you know, you don't really get because it's not a big deal. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I also add snow like on the actual buildings themselves, like, you know, mostly on the roof, because, you know, when it snows, like, you don't get up on your roof and clear off the snow. You just clear off the snow where you're going to be walking or driving or whatever. So, you know, that's what this is, just giving that little extra bit of detail with the snow, and I think it works out pretty well. Just, you know, it's just that little extra bit. So as this episode winds down, you know, just gonna do the usual spiel here. You know, obviously make sure you guys are leaving your comments and suggestions down below, because I like reading them on the episodes, and hopefully you guys like them, so, you know, get you to interact just a little bit more. I do enjoy that. And then also, you know, if you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Definitely helps out a lot. And then also, like, just click the little, once you subscribe, click the little bell icon. YouTube will send you updates whenever I post new videos. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I am 8-Bit Josh, and thanks for watching. See ya.